Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you once again for this second hour. We just had a stirring conversation about what's been happening with the World Central Kitchen and the fact that this convoy was bombed 3 times, everybody. When you hear the description of it, it's really horrific. When the first car was bombed, the 2 cars stopped behind them and they picked up the survivors from the first car. Then the IDF bombed the second car. So the third car stopped and gathered those survivors. And then the IDF bombed them. Please go to YouTube so you can hear the conversation because we talked with Dave DeCamp of antiwar.com who described this. And we had talked about a path forward with Alex Nelson from If Not Now and attorney Robert Patillo, who has been with Rainbow Push. So you don't want to miss that, and you don't want to miss this. What is going on with Kamala Harris? Everyone has been raining down on the vice president for the past 3 years. They're saying she's as unpopular as the president. She needs to be dumped from the ticket. Oh boy, she's a problem. Well, she doesn't appear to be that much of a problem now because now the areas where the president is really having the most difficulty with Black voters, with Arab voters, with ceasefire voters, and on and on and on it goes. That is where she is being deployed. She is being called President Biden's secret weapon. So please go to YouTube, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Click that button so that when we come up live, you will be notified. The Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe, and then go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page where we are streaming live. You don't want to miss that. And join me there. Become my friend on Santita Jackson and Friends and on X at Santita J. At Santita J is my handle. We've got a tremendous panel to talk about this today. What is going to happen in election 2024, and how is Kamala Harris, the vice president of the United States, how is she being used? And will she be able to pull in the Black vote, pull in the ceasefire vote, pull in the Arab vote? Will she be able to pull out these people who increasingly are moving away from President Biden and the Republican Party? And the Democratic Party. And they're going to many different places, but they are moving away from here. Please join us in this conversation. Dwight McKee, Dean of the Ma'afa Redemption Project, Senior Advisor to Dr. Cornel West in his presidential quest. And it's a joy to be with you. Dwight, of course, is one of the founding members of Operation Push and the National Action Network. And he's done so much work, and his activism has known no bounds for more than 50 years. Texas State Representative who's on the ground with folks. He keeps trying to sound the alarm. Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, they're going to listen to you. Of course, from the national leadership team of Rainbow Push, Reverend Dr. Todd Deary, Esquire, senior pastor of the iconic Douglas Memorial Community Church in Baltimore, Maryland. But as our special guest who we had yesterday, but I had to bring her back, my sister Janan Najib. And indeed she is. They're just coming off this thrilling victory in Wisconsin where they got 60,000 uncommitted votes, 48,000 plus on the Democratic side, 12,000 plus on the Republican side. I think it's important for us to talk about all of that as this movement continues to grow. More than 500,000 Americans have voted uncommitted or uninstructed if they have the space to do that. I think it's something that the Biden administration ought to listen to, but more than that, they need to act upon it. But of course, she's the founder and executive director of the Milwaukee Muslim Women's Coalition and the Wisconsin Coalition for Justice in Palestine, doing so much great work there. Every time I reached out to this woman, my sister, she is driving and on her way to and fro and on and on and on. Talk to me. What do you make of Kamala Harris and how she is being used? What do you make of her in 2024? Janan Najib.
Well, I think she's still part of the Biden administration. I'm sorry she's married to a Zionist. I'm not a big fan of either, the president or Kamala. I know we were all excited, of course, about having a woman of color as the vice president, but at the end of the day, she's promoting the same line that the administration is. So, you know, right now, my focus is completely on this end to the genocide, a genocide that is really one of the most barbaric genocides that history has ever seen. It's also the first genocide in history where the people that are the victims of the genocide are recording their own demise, and those who are committing the genocide are actively recording their criminal acts. So there's no question as to what is happening, and whether it's Kamala Harris or President Biden, they have been complicit. They are well aware of what's going on, and they are solidly behind this arming of the apartheid state of Israel, that is committing this genocide and uh, attempting the extermination of the Palestinian people. So, I would have hoped, as a person of color, as a woman, as a mother, that she would be the voice of reason. She would be really somebody that we could look at it, say she's really pushing the president and the administration to take a particular stand. But as long as I'm not seeing that, I'm not a fan.
Mm. So, what do you? So, um, when she goes into these different communities, and as you said, she's married to a Zionist. What are people saying?
That empty words. This is what we're hearing. We're hearing that, whether it's a president or Kamala Harris, that it's empty words. I think that all of us know that if your actions don't uphold what you're saying, these are just empty statements that you're making. And so we want to see really an end to these policies. We want to see an end to the unequivocal support of this racist colonialist state that was established 76 years ago by European powers in the middle of the Arab world, and has done nothing but wreak havoc on the entire region. And just very recently, we all know that the United States, for one of the very few times in history, really allowed a resolution to move forward in the Security Council, calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. And so, what do we do as a result? Our president goes ahead and sends $18 billion in fighter jets to Israel. So what is this saying to us? This is saying that there are certain people in the world that don't matter. We saw when Russia attacked Ukraine, the response um, from our government to a European country being attacked. And this is, of course, ignoring a lot of historical things that we're aware of. But just the response, how different it was from when the Palestinians are being exterminated. And the number of people that are being killed within such a short span of time is unprecedented in history. And the intentional targeting of women and children, making up 75% of those who are being killed in order to prevent the next generation, is unprecedented. But it's not the first time. This is, of course, it's horrific in the level of the atrocities. But in the last 17 years alone, Israel has gone in 15 times and attacked Gaza. And each time they've killed thousands, and it's a policy that's well known and they're very proud of. They call it mowing the lawn, mowing the grass. It's basically as children are born, as more the population grows in this concentration camp, they go in and bring down the population to make sure that the people remain in this concentration camp. And nobody's ever, said anything for all of these years. The first time the world pays attention is when individuals have, in Gaza break out of this concentration camp, which would be akin to breaking, an uprising in the Warsaw Ghetto, which is, presented as being a fantastic thing. But when they broke out, suddenly, because it's European people of European ancestry that were killed, suddenly the entire world pays attention. But for how many years the Palestinians have been annihilated, nobody says anything.
That is interesting, isn't it? I mean, and of course, our hearts go out to the one Palestinian who was killed, but the 6 other people of European descent who were killed, and now the world has stopped. And that's painful. It's got to be. Jeanette,
yeah. I mean, we've been counting numbers, when every single hospital has been demolished, when every single university, when every single school, when every single aid agency, when we've lost, literally Al Jazeera alone lost almost 100 journalists, and no one says anything. But and as horrible and as horrific as it is to lose these aid workers, these European aid workers, it's horrific. They put their life on the line to help starving Palestinians. But suddenly, people are paying attention, and suddenly President Biden is calling Netanyahu and telling him, well, this is unacceptable. But 40,000 Palestinians, blown to pieces or sitting or dying under the rubble. And we're still, kind of waiting to see what happens next.
Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, you are a Democrat and you are tasked with selling this ticket. And you see, we've gone from some people saying that, that Vice President needed to be dumped from the ticket, to Washington Monthly calls her, Washington Monthly calls her Joe Biden's secret weapon. Reuters, the headline, Kamala Harris pushes the envelope as Biden struggles with some Democrats. The Washington Post, she steps up in her role as ambassador to voters shaky on Biden. She's critical to his re-election, and on and on and on and on. She's being sent to the Black community, to the Arab American community, to the ceasefire community, while they're trying to shrink Biden's events. They don't want him to be in these big events. They're vetting everyone who's coming to these events. What do you make of that? I mean, because the first day gave me the border, I'm like, somebody doesn't like this woman. She keeps getting the worst details. Oh my gosh.
Well, first of all, I just want.
Can she save the Black vote? I mean, can she
convince? Well, I think that. Well, let me just say this really quickly. My heart goes out to everything that was said before me.
Yes.
There's the value of human life, whether you're Black, white, Muslim, Hindu, Christian, Jewish, is equal, right? There's no life that's more precious than another life. So I don't think that anyone should put the value of a Jewish life over a Muslim life. And every life, every innocent civilian, every child, every woman, everyone that's died is one life too many, as you said, Santita. So my heart goes out as a human. This is a humanitarian crisis, and I think that we should have a ceasefire, and we should have a real tangible two-state solution that benefits the people that live there. But to your question, I think that President Biden has a real challenge on his hand with the mess that he's in now, that because of poor decisions that he's made. indecisive action in dealing specifically with Gaza. He should have immediately called for a ceasefire. He should have been more proactive, but he wasn't. And now he's trying to rely on his vice president, which she is competent, capable, and qualified. I'm very proud that she's made history as the first woman of color, first woman and woman of color, biracial, to serve as the vice president of the United States. But he's tasked her with a real dubious task. She is trying to validate him and try to repackage him, trying to make sure that the Black community and others find him acceptable. I think that people want to see policies. They don't want to hear rhetoric. They don't want to. They don't care if they roll out a black face if they don't if it's not backed up with tangible action. And so I think that the vice president, when she was in Selma, she said some of the right things, but it didn't go far enough. I think that they need to be more direct in their response to this humanitarian crisis, to the genocide that's taking place in Gaza. And I think that that's the only way they're going to stop the bleeding. I think that she has tried. The first thing I remember when we fled, Santita, if you remember, the first time you and I made contact was because of the my colleagues and I flee in Texas to go to DC, advocating for voting rights, federal voting rights, and the John Lewis voting rights and the freedom to vote. And we went to DC urging Congress to pass that legislation because of the voter suppression Jim Crow 2.0 laws in Texas. Well, the president was slow to act. He was very much leading from behind. He didn't initially want to push Manchin and Sinema to end the filibuster, or at least a carve out to get voting rights passed. And then lo and behold, after the dust settled, he sent out Kamala Harris to then try to appease us and try to, work out a solution. So I've seen him do this before. I think he needs to lead from the front. I think it's great that he can, give her meaningful work and not have her doing ceremonial stuff. But I think that sometimes he sets her up for failure if he's not going to acquiesce and do what needs to be done. We know we need federal voting rights. We know we need a ceasefire. We know we need to codify Roe versus Wade. So some of the things that he has her doing, he should be doing, but he's afraid to, I think, step on the toes of AIPAC. I think he's afraid to step on the toes of some moderate Democrats and maybe some independents. And I think the president needs to lead from the front. He needs to be courageous. He needs to be on the right side of history. So I think that the strategy is a little flawed. I think it's a good idea to give the vice president these meaningful assignments. But if he's not going to make changes himself, then it's not going to be as well received. And people are going to look at it very questionable, and they're not going to give him the benefit of the doubt if he won't back it up with action himself. If it's just some rhetoric from her, she can say, well, hey, the president is with me. But until they hear from the president, until they see action, then they're going to just say, well, he's just trying to appease us, or he's selling us wolf tickets. We're not going for the okie doke. We won't be hoodwinked and bamboozled. We want to see you, Mr. President. You're the one that's at the top of the ticket. You're the one that has to be accountable to the American people. And so we want to see you do it. And the vice president can tee it up. But if you're not doing it, then we're not going along with it. So I think the long and short of it is, I think it's a start. But the only way to make it a reality is if he himself joins her and then he sends her out. But he has to lead himself. He's the number one. We vote for president. We don't vote for vice president.
Dwight McKee, how do you read this strategy of putting her out with the voters with whom he is struggling? How do you read this?
Well, some say she's his secret weapon. I say she's his trash bin. Anything that he can't handle, anything that's not fixable, he puts in her lap so she can take the hit for it. And I think she just is being used over and over and over again. But I think, she buys into it. And so she's not innocent. She's not naive. She knows what she signed up for. And he's using her to his advantage. and to her disadvantage. So all of the real hard issues that can't be resolved, he puts in her lap, and she is the good legislator. Just say she brings rhetoric to it, no solutions, and she ends up taking much of the hit for it not being resolved. He has most of it, in my opinion. He has no intentions of resolving, because he is, in my opinion, a basic, absolute racist, and that he really, in his heart, has much more regard when white people get killed than when people of color get killed. That's his orientation. I believe he was legitimately shaken by these six Europeans getting killed on the breakfast program. I think he legitimately got shaken by that. I think, uh, conversely, he's been unshaken with the 30,000 Palestinians, 40,000 Palestinians that's gotten killed. He just think that comes with the territory. And um, and I
Well,
think he has,
remember, at first he disbelieved the numbers. Remember that?
because he's a racist, and he is, and that's why he deals with Haiti much different than he deals with the Ukraine. Um, and I think once black people accept that, my opinion of what is a fact, then I think that, that they will see themselves out of this cesspool, and not be used themselves to support this genocide, which to me is the ultimate evil.
Josh Feinstein, Jewish Voice for Peace Action. What do you make of the of the positioning of Kamala Harris? What do you make of that? I mean, Dwight McKee said she's not the secret weapon; she's the trash bin, and many people have wondered about sending her into these danger zones. Now, mind you, to me, we've had a guest, a member of the Santita Jackson Show family, who said, "Look, she's going against the president." And I said, "Honey, don't be naive. This is not how this works. You're on the team or you're not on the team. She's on the team." And I'm wondering how this lands. I mean, because you just can't brown up imperialism, right? you know, that that's not working for me. It works for some people because I hear a lot of people say, "I want someone who looks like me there," and I no, that does not work for me. I want to know how you're thinking. I want to know if you're an imperialist or not. I mean, those are the things I want to know. I want to know: are you a freedom fighter? Are you a slaver? Those are the things that I need to know. So, I mean, the administration's actions belie what she's saying. She was in Selma. She said, "I want a ceasefire." ... Texas State Representative for 6 weeks. She didn't say she wanted a ceasefire. She said yeah, while you're applauding. And then she said after the applause, 6 weeks.
Yeah, I have to say this.
Yeah.
I love Dwight's passion, and I think sometimes we get real passionate when we talk. I want to strongly disagree that
Okay.
President Biden is a racist. I don't believe he's a racist. As chair of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus, I can say that I'm pro-black, but I don't believe he's racist. I do think that there's some racial insensitivity that he has, but to have a African American VP, to have the first person to appoint a black female to Supreme Court, to some of the initiatives that he's made, to having been former President Barack Obama's pick for VP, it's hard for me to believe that he's a racist. I could be proven wrong if there was some real evidence, but I would have a hard time believing it based on his years of service and the things that he's done. But I do think that this is a problem that he has, that he needs to fix and he needs to correct. I do believe that he's put the vice president out on some very mission impossible, to use that word. But I do think that he needs to step it up, and he's let us down. I mean, quite frankly, he let us down when it came to this to the federal voting rights legislation, not pushing the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. He let us down. He let us down with not demanding a ceasefire. But to say he's a racist, I think is uncharacteristic of what he's shown in nearly 4 decades of public service. So that's what I want to say. Now, if you said about President Trump, I would agree he's a racist. A lot of MAGA folks, I would agree that they're racist. But to say that President Biden is a racist, I think is an overreach.
Dwight, would you like to respond?
Well, he put Tamla on the ticket because he had no choice. He could not have won without the black vote. And black women demanded a black vice president and a black Supreme Court as part of their negotiation. So he didn't do that by choice, or he didn't do that because he was liberal. He did that because he wanted to be the president. And that was the only way he could become the president. If you look at his record over the last 40 or 50 years, it's not a very stellar record when it comes to racism. I mean, he fought against busing. He put Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court. His best friend was the Dixiecrats, was his mentor. I mean, he does not have a very stellar record when it comes to that. He's been a big disappointment to us, but he has not been a big disappointment to most white people, because that's his first inclination is to do what they need for him to do. By virtue of the fact that he puts Tamala in the situations that are unresolvable, to me is indicative of the fact that he don't think that much of her, that he would put her in these awkward situations knowing he has no intentions of resolving them. She's just a sacrificial lamb to him. And given his propensity to put Negroes on the altar, it's not it's more a testament to what do you think of black people. But I'd be curious of other people's opinion. I'm open-minded.
Well, that's good. Josh Feinstein, your thoughts about how Vice President Harris is being positioned, because she's being sent to do, as they say, mission impossible. Oh, can you hear? No, it's okay. You work that out. We're going to get right back to you. Don't worry about it. Okay. Reverend Yuri, your thoughts?
Well, you already know one of my sayings is, what can you expect from a pig but a grunt? The nature of a thing establishes what you can expect from a thing. When my dear sister was talking about the young colonialist nation that had been formed, I was with her, and then she said 76 years ago, and I was like, well, that's not the United States. It was formed more than 76 years ago, but it was formed out of the same kind of colonialist framework that has a racial understructure and underpinning. Let's just be real clear. And so the fact that the president sends the vice president out, that shouldn't surprise us. She's the vice president. Vice presidents don't have significant responsibilities. At the end of the day, this is Biden's show. And this is Biden's mess. This is not his mess for her to clean up or to fix up or to dress up. And so by sending her out to have conversations with constituencies and communities that he knows he has a problem with, is, I do think where Ron Reynolds is right, is it's a cynical ploy. This is his show. He got to show up, because at the end of the day, he doesn't have a who problem. He has a what problem. So sending her does not fix his what. His what is, he's been too slow, too passive, too indifferent, too poor on messaging about the policies that matter to the folks that he's expecting to pull his tail out of the fire this election. Full stop. And at the end of the day, whenever you can say, in this kind of contrast, where you could not have probably a better opponent in terms of a poor public profile than Donald Trump, to say that you're even in a competition in this day and age, with all that has happened with the Supreme Court, with all that has happened in terms of the economic harm that's.
Oh boy. Well, let me pick up with you, Najib. Because a lot has been said here, and we'll come back to Reverend Dr. Yeri when we're able to reestablish the connection. What could, if she is, there was just a meeting with the Arab community, some Arab leaders, about 5 or 6 of them, yes, with President Biden, and one of the attendees walked out. He said, "This is insulting. You're playing with me." How would, if Kamala Harris came to Michigan right now, came to Detroit, came to Milwaukee, and wanted to have a sit down with the Arab community, with the Muslim women, Milwaukee Muslim Women's Council, how would that be received?
Yeah, I think we think it's just a lot of BS. It's going to be just trying to trying to calm things down, and going back a little bit to the idea of why is President Biden sending Kamala out. It's sort of like, okay, she's sort of like the hostess with the mostest. Go and entertain people, talk to them, all of these types of things. But there's a realization and understanding that nothing's really going to happen. It's just waste people's time. So if she came, I would do exactly what these Arab Americans that met with President Biden did, where they refused. The iftar for Ramadan was canceled because nobody wants to sit and eat while an imposed famine and starvation is taking place. That's insulting. Really, the doctor that walked out handed him a letter from an 8-year-old orphan who was, purposely orphaned in Gaza. That's basically begging that not to let Israel bomb Rafah. So, I guess I have to disagree a bit with Representative Reynolds, with all due respect, but I do think that there's racism there. I think that in certain instances, Biden cannot clearly show racism because it's just not acceptable, especially for the Democratic Party. It's not politically correct. But you look at what people do. Look at the difference with how the reaction to, for example, allowing when the invasion of Ukraine took place, and immediately opening up our doors to, what was it, 100,000 Ukraine refugees, whereas for 20 years we were using these Afghan individuals, and then when we pulled out and we were going to bring the I don't know where that sound is coming in from.
I don't know where that is coming from. Hold on. Okay, hold on. Okay. I think it was coming from you for a minute. Okay.
From here?
Sister Najib?
Oh, that's strange.
Yeah,
okay.
We got it. It's worked out.
All right. Yeah. No, I was saying that let's just look very recently at the way the president reacted when to open the doors for Ukrainian refugees, whereas look at the manner in which the Afghan refugees were brought in as asylees, and the situation that they were basically put in. Same thing when the attacks took place on October 7th. Biden got in himself and went to hug Netanyahu and whatever. the Palestinians have been getting killed for 76 years. There have been so many instances. When has he gone to hug any Palestinian? And just the reaction, the idea that 40,000 people are dead, mainly women and children, and this utter, disregard, eating an ice cream cone while he's talking about some of this. This to me is racism. You can't hide it all the time, and it's going to show up in different ways. But I think at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to really move this administration is going to be when, coming face to face with the idea that he may become a one-term president as a result. There are a lot of people that are saying, we definitely don't want Trump. He's horrible, but you know what? We cannot in good conscience go and vote for someone that allowed and in fact was complicit and supported a genocide of an entire people in this manner.
Well, I mean, Trump's position, Robert Kennedy's position, and Biden's position, they're the same. Before I come to you, Josh, Reverend Dr. Yeary, I wanted you to finish making the point now that you're back.
Well, now that I don't know which part I got cut off on, but when we expect an outcome that is not even remotely possible because of the framework, let's just be real clear. At the end of the day, the president of the United States and politics, as Ron Reynolds will know, for some folks it's an effort of commitment. For others, it's an effort of opportunity. And when you're an opportunist, the opportunity in this moment is to try to get another term. That's what both of them, in terms of the two leading party candidates, Democrat and Republican, are looking to do. They're trying to get another 4 years. What would they expect to be able to do? Well, they would be able to position and spend trillions of dollars to support particular interests, to achieve particular outcomes, and to direct certain amounts of wealth. They would be able to influence the dynamic of what happens on the global policy stage. They would be able to hopefully influence policy outcomes that achieves a more equitable national profile and a more credible presence on the world stage. The problem is that what we have in President Biden and former President Trump is a difference in degree, not of type. And so if we look at the credibility of the record, and to Ron Reynolds' point, right, leaning into trying to get and pushing Manchin and Sinema to do more around voting rights, around police reform, around defending the civil rights work that has come about as a way, as a byproduct, actually, of litigation and legislation. We haven't really seen that, and it's showing up in terms of the real-time issue of what's going on in Gaza. And so we have to be very, very clear and understand very deeply that Joe Biden is not the savior. Joe Biden is less of a problem. And until we build a kind of structure around him, which means we've got to look at all levels of the election, and that would include who's going to the House, who's going to the Senate, who's going to state houses and to state governorships, that's going to be the issue. And we've got to work through that and deal with that in the upcoming election. And so I'll pause so we can kind of work through these technical details.
And every time we get one of Einstein, and there it is. But I'm accustomed to this. I'll keep this going. Josh, how do you view how the vice president is being used now? I mean, she's being brought before the crowds that are booing. I mean, and think about it. The president doesn't even want to face these people. His events, the White House, apparently, according to reports, he is very upset about his poll numbers not being strong, being low, and they are looking to make his events smaller. Now, in a campaign, you want huge events. You want thousands upon thousands of people. Oh, no. He wants smaller events. and they want to vet every person who comes into those events because they do not want what happened on Sunday night in New York. The protesting throngs outside by the hundreds, if not the thousands, and the people inside who popped up. They paid their money and they popped up. Genocide Joe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What do you make of how they're using the vice president?
Thank you, Santita. I'll get to the Vice President Harris in a moment. I just want to respond to the conversation that's been going on, which has been very healthy. And there's a lot of debate around the label of racist. And I want to put that aside, and just what came out of the conversation is action. This president is both complicit and enabling a genocide. It doesn't matter to me what label we put on that. That is the action that is happening right now. And so I think as we talk about his road to re-election and such, first, I have a good vantage point of being in Michigan, because I ran into a lobbyist the other day, and he said to me, by the way, you know the road to Washington leads through Michigan, don't you? I said, I sure do. And I can tell you that in Michigan, the population here is saying, I cannot in good conscience vote for this man because he is enabling a genocide. And when they say that, many people are, there's people such as myself who say that from a moral point of view, but then there is a healthy Arab American community here that said, I can't believe I voted for him. The fact that I voted for him makes me, a human being, complicit in this current genocide. I have already sinned. I am not going to sin again. And think about that. So it goes to pass. There's also, and I, in some sense, I apologize that I'm getting out of my swim lane, being Jewish, perhaps. But the thing is, I'm around this world, and I'm seeing this world where I'm going, and I'm seeing people who, again, who used to support Biden that said, I can't believe I vote for him. I still feel guilty that I pulled the lever for Biden. And these are people that are well aware of the danger of who Donald Trump is. But they are saying that I still feel a sense of shame that I voted for him, because by doing that, I've enabled the death of 40,000 innocent people. And therefore, sorry?
At least.
But yes, as Ralph Nader said, it's probably around 2 million if you actually do the proper math about who's under the rubble. But so that's at the very least. And what the Biden administration is missing is that they have so far missed the boat. Now, again, I don't care if that's racism. I don't care if that's tone deaf. There are people in Michigan, and they will decide the election, who will not vote for Joe Biden again, who have voted for him in the past. There are people who voted for Joe Biden who will actually go in and actively flip the switch for Trump to make up for their past transgressions. When I say transgressions, I'm talking about the person's feeling about, I can't believe I voted for a man who's enabling a genocide. So I want to be clear that while we have this whole debate about, is he racist, is he not the racist, his actions are unacceptable from a humanitarian point of view, in my point of view, but I'm living in a state where people are going to vote along those lines, regardless of what I say or anyone in this panel says. I hope that makes sense to my fellow panelists.
Well, it does make sense. But I guess the challenge, though, is racism is as American as apple pie, as H. Rap Brown said. And you can't take racism out of, it's not race, but racism. Because we treat people of color very differently. We're responding to the WCK killings because there's one Palestinian in it, but it's 6 Europeans.
Yes.
European extraction. And racism is part of this, and racism has been one of the trading cards of the president. It has been, just down through the years. I mean, after they beat Rodney King half to death,
yes,
he went on the floor of the U.S. Senate calling for presenting a police officer's Bill of Rights. He is the one who tried to bury Anita Hill and elevate Clarence Thomas. I mean, I'm hearing you, but as Black people, see, I can never integrate. All I can ever do is desegregate. I can never pass for anything else. And when people find out that I might be one scintilla of Black, have that changes the entire conversation in America, because that's just the way this thing has been set up.
It's interesting.
Frankly, it's the way the world order has been set up, Josh.
Yeah. In Europe, when they adopted, as everyone in this call knows, they adopted the mandates of racism, that 1% rule. In Europe, they said that's even a step too far for us. What we had
Yes.
in the United States. Let's switch over to question of
Well, hold on,
Kamala
because
Harris.
racism, I mean, because ghetto is a term that comes out of the Holocaust.
Also, yes,
That's not something we even did here.
yes,
You know,
yes,
I mean, that we did it, but we didn't say it. You know,
yes. So, if with your permission, I want to just address
of
about
course.
VP Harris. Again, I kind of see Dwight's point of view that essentially this is unwinnable, unfixable. Have Mrs. Harris go deal with it. And I think in a situation like this, two things are happening. One, and again, I know she's on the team, but what is coming across is not coming across honestly as sincere. You know, and whether it's sincere, it's not coming across as sincere. And the other idea is that the idea of, and I did the pre-read, you know, you always send out these wonderful pre-reads. I did the pre-read, and the pre-read they talked about, and you all can answer this better than I can about, I would like Harris there because it says here, it offers a guarantee that those communities' interests will be represented at the White House. Well, I'd submit to all of you that even having Kamala Harris in the White House is certainly not guaranteed that the communities that she can potentially represent, their interests are being served. So I think it's
Cynical, maybe.
Good, please.
Cynical, maybe. What do you think?
Yes, I don't know if the word cynical. It's just ineffective. If we're talking politics, ineffective. So with that, again, I want to cede my time because you have so many great panelists on here. I want to hear.
You're making a point because you said, "Wait a minute, let's correct," and I stand corrected because when you're talking about politics, let's take the emotion out of it. It's whether it's effective or if it's ineffective, and I'm saying that, you know, browning up this imperialism, browning up genocide, just no, but no. No, I mean that becomes problematic. I want to go around because we only have about 5 minutes left, and I want everyone to be able to make a statement. And literally, I need you all to get within a minute because I want Sister Najee to close us out after this tremendous victory they've had, but we've got more work to do. Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, bless your heart.
No,
There's a lot.
Santita, I want to thank you for having this platform and the courage to have this conversation, because these are the backroom conversations that are being had. And many people within the Democratic Party don't want to have these conversations for the sake of embarrassing the president, or it's taboo, or we can't talk about our own. I believe in holding our own accountable. So I'm not giving President Biden a pass. I'm simply stating that we are in a very precarious position that if we mess around and vote third party, or we undervote, or we vote for Trump, then it's going to be a disastrous 4 years where we're going to. I don't fear a lie. You know, false fear is nothing more than false evidence appearing real. But I have grave concerns about a second Trump term, that for African Americans, for Muslims, for Hispanics, for minorities, for poor people, for poor white people, for, you know, many marginalized communities. So I am not saying that President Biden is the greatest president. I'm simply saying that of the options that we have within our two-party system, that President Biden is the best alternative that we have on the ballot. So that's what I'm saying. So I really am very sensitive to the atrocities and the genocide that is happening. I hope and pray for the people of this world and this nation, and for peace, that President Biden will call for a ceasefire, and that Benjamin Netanyahu will be sent packing from Israel. But until then, the United States needs to be the moral leader. And I really appreciate this discussion. I appreciate and respect everyone's opinions. And I'm going to continue to do what I can to speak truth to power, and hope and pray that the Biden administration will turn it around.
You know, and we appreciate your being here, because as an elected official, we hear your struggle. We do. I want you to, and we hear you really, and respect and appreciate what you really, really want to do, and what you're looking at in terms of the pragmatism of what, you know, because it's one thing to be a candidate. It's another thing to get in that seat and to have to negotiate and on and on. And trust me, I get it. So hats off to you. And thank you for never shying away from the tough conversations that we have here. Josh Feinstein, I've got less than a minute for you.
I just want to respond to Representative Reynolds, who I have a lot of respect. Also, the fact that he has to now live in two worlds, a lot of respect there. I just want to end with just a rebuttal, actually, about we talk as if Trump is the existential threat. And I sound like a broken record, because this is what I say all the time. Everyone says Trump is an existential threat. If you are Arab American or an Arab American ally, such as myself, the existential threat is here. It is happening. It is happening right now. It's not something that we have to guard against. It is happening as we speak. And so that's why respectfully I push back on the assertion about we need to figure out a way not to get Trump in. I think we need to address this now. The communities that I know have gotten to the point where they are, what's the word? I have less than 30 seconds. I think I made my point. Rather than dilute it, I see my time. Thank you.
No, you're right. The threat is here. Dwight McKee, 30 seconds.
Well, I think that I'm safer with Trump than I am with Biden because Trump is predictable and transparent, whereas Biden is deceptive and unpredictable. And so given those choices, I'm much safer with somebody I can read. But Brother Reynolds, we appreciate you being here because we know you ain't a typical Negro, that you are atypical in that you a clean kind of Negro that's articulate. You ain't like other Negroes.
Oh, no, you didn't pull the Biden thing on him. Oh, let me mute this man.
Hey, Santita, I'm about to come back for another show to respond to that.
I'm putting him right now. I just muted him.
Dwight always steals the show.
You don't have to hear it anymore. You don't have to hear him anymore. He's done.
Trying to elevate things here, Dwight. Trying to elevate them. Okay, so
what? Thank you, Dwight. Thank you. Clean, articulate. That's you, but that's true. Reverend Dr. Yuri, 30 seconds. I'm muting this guy.
Yeah, the notion of the existential threat and who it is and what it is depends on your existential reality. And there are multiple realities that are impacted by what is going on in this current election cycle. And so that brings me back to the other point. No one state can elect a president. And so everybody's got to be engaged around the existential threats based on their existential realities. Otherwise, we're going to all make a fatal mistake one way or other that's going to run counter, and it will be more than just a particular group that's going to be adversely impacted in the end. So let's be clear on that.
Well, Sister Najib, you got the final word here.
Thank you. And it's an honor being with everyone. And I do respect Representative Reynolds so much. But you know what? We refuse to have to choose between bans and bombs. And we also refuse to be made responsible for, the win or loss of a particular elected official just simply because we're fearful of someone else. One individual told me he lost over 100 family members in Gaza. He said, you know what? I'll live through another ban. I can't live through another genocide. So it depends on where you're It depends on where you're standing. For us, this is just an example of the utter lack of consideration and respect for the lives of brown people, Black people, whatever you want. People that are not white European, and this is really what it is. And from our perspective and my perspective as a Palestinian myself, we have done everything possible. We have marched, we have rallied, we have made phone calls, we have sent emails, we have sent letters, we have done sit-ins, we have done everything possible, and we've been totally ignored. We cannot in good conscience, and I'm speaking for myself, I cannot in good conscience vote for someone that has sat and watched the extermination of a people. I cannot in good conscience. That doesn't mean I wanted Trump presidency. I'm saying to President Biden, it's your choice. You make the choice. it's not on you. It's your choice.
Well, no, sure, and that's the point. Well, I'm not making this. Biden is doing this. And look, as a descendant of African American slaves, I'm afraid of nothing.
Absolutely.
I've lived through the worst. That I don't know about everybody else, but I know here, as my mother said, I am evidence that some things went very wrong.
Yeah. It's really.
Well, she was trying to explain that to me because you go to Africa and they look at you and say you're from this tribe and that. She said, let's put it this way. You are evidence that something went very wrong. And it took me many years to get it, but I hear her. So I fear nothing. And you fear nothing. Get out, get registered, and vote, and demand that the president do what you want him to do, because he works for you. Most Americans want a ceasefire, and we need to have a bigger ass. We need to go further. We want justice in the Middle East, and we want justice all over the world. And I'm not going to stop until we get it. I'll see you on Monday, everybody. But before then, remember, keep hope alive on Sunday. Love you, everybody. God bless you.